If you are a high school senior photographer, or honestly, portrait photographer in general, and you struggle with editing your images, I'm going to be going in depth on my Lightroom editing process and walking you from start to finish from a senior session in the fall all the way through the final product and the final images that I deliver to my clients. So stick around. Hey there, welcome to the channel. My name's Sean Brown. I'm a high school senior portrait photographer, and after growing my business to 6 figures per year, now I help photographers just like you do the exact same through teaching you marketing, senior rep programs, everything from pricing and editing today. So we are going to dive into my editing process, and we're going to go from Lightroom edit all the way through, walking you through the different layers that I have in edits that I do my signature edit on. And so if you're interested on seeing how we actually got this image in the first place, actually have a free behind the scenes senior session that you can download. We'll have the link down in the description for you so you can grab that. And really one of the things that I always say is before you even get to the edit can only fix what we have created in camera. So if you're not using things like the right lighting or the right locations or even what outfits your seniors are wearing, this can impact the final image and the final edit. So we want to make sure that we have that first and foremost. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take you into Lightroom, and I went ahead and pulled 5-ish of my favorite images. Are we going to edit these all? I don't know. We're going to try to keep this video short and tight for you all. But one of the things that I'm going to kind of first state is for this fall senior session, one of the things that's really important that we want to get correct right in camera is lighting. And so for me, what I want to do is I'm typically going to expose for things like the skin tone. And so on some of the images, you may see that backdrops are a little blown out, or maybe the image looks even maybe a teeny tiny little bit underexposed. So keep in mind, this is a screen recording, so it's not going to be exactly perfect, but you're going to get a good idea for how these images look. So for this first one, I pulled in a few urban settings and a few nature settings so you can kind of see roughly, you know, how those different settings might work for lighting and all that stuff. So the first thing is we want to make sure that we're getting everything correct, or at least as close to straight out of camera. So right here, we've got our senior session. It is completely unedited. So this is the straight out of camera, and make sure I got my brightness up so I am editing and not like it's too blown out or anything like that. And what I'm typically going to do is I'm going to look for skin tones. So for this particular client, one of the things is that with her being a little bit more fair toned, I'm going to make sure that I'm not blowing out her highlights. So with this, I'm going to typically for an edit bring down the highlights first. Now, mind you, I'm shooting with a Canon R6 Mark II and a Sigma 85 art lens. Now, with this lens, it's a little bit less contrasty than my Canon equivalents. And so I really notice this showing up the most in my images. So with this, I'm typically going to bring highlights down a little bit because of that. There seems to be a little bit more, for some reason, it just doesn't feel like it brings those highlights down quite as much as some of my other lenses, some of my other cameras that I've worked with before. And from there, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of bump up the exposure a little bit. And the reason I do this is because if we bring down up the exposure without bringing down our highlights, we're going to have our senior skin pretty under or overexposed, should I say. Now, when we bring down the exposure and when we bring down, or when we bring up the exposure and when we bring down the highlights, one of the things that's going to happen is your image is going to get a little bit flat. So with this, I'm usually going to come into my tone curve, and I'm going to come in the darks. I'm just going to hit that down arrow a couple times on my keyboard and up arrow a couple times on my keyboard after hovering over the lights and the dark section. You can also do it in here as well, kind of in this region area. But this adds just a little bit of contrast. And for some, I may even come in and, add a little bit more in certain areas of the darks and stuff like that. And then when we add in that contrast, usually I find myself pulling down those highlights even a little bit more. Sometimes I might add in a little bit of contrast, and to make these adjustments, I'm just hitting the up or down arrow on my keyboard. And then I'm typically going to bring down the blacks a little bit and then bring up the shadows just a teensy little bit. And this is more to like retain detail in her clothing or something like that. So that's really where that's going to pull that from. And yeah, that's pretty much that. So little before and after. And then with this, her skin's looking a little pink. We can bring this out in editing during the retouching phase, but I'm going to just drop those kind of the magentas into the green section a little bit. And keep in mind with these edits, I am completely shooting manually. So my Kelvin is set manually, and I've even set my tint in camera as well. So with this lens, again, one of the things that I notice is that it shoots a little bit green, so I tend to add in a little bit more of that pink tint just to get it closer to in camera. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do for my Lightroom edit. So I'll just kind of use the backslash or forward slash, whichever one that is, the one that's right in between my return and delete keys, and just kind of toggle back and forth. And I might even have a little bit too much contrast. I usually don't edit on my laptop. I'm usually on a calibrated monitor, so it may be a little different than it finally, but overall, I'll just turn up the brightness a little bit. Overall, looking pretty good start to finish. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to use the, I don't know what it's called, remove tool, the AI tool. It's just this guy right here in Lightroom. Remove tool. So with this, I'm just going to highlight this recycling bin, and using the power of AI, I'm not on great Wi-Fi, so we'll see how quick this goes. I'm usually just going to take out the distractions. I would try to shoot around those and photograph without those distractions. But if we do have it in, I'll usually just take those out, and I'll just kind of toggle through the variations, and that looks pretty good. Just a little bit more clean than having a recycling can right behind your client. So that's pretty much it. You can play around a little bit in the develop mode with things like the camera defringer and stuff like that. With this one, since it's not backlit, we don't have a ton going on, so I'm not going to worry too much. Same thing, I'm going to go ahead and reset that from the original, and same thing, I'm just going to kind of start by bringing down the highlights, bumping up the exposure, contrast, shadows, blacks down a little bit, add a little bit of an S-curve, and I'm going quickly because it's the exact same process as before. So if you need to go back and rewatch what I did previously, you can do so. If you want a little bit more of an in-depth analysis as well, we've got our Pose and Snap training. That's our course with which we cover everything from posing, shooting to editing, where I walk you through a little bit more in detail. That link's also in the description as well. So if you're curious about that, you can check out that. But for right there, that's a pretty quick edit, and I'm pretty happy with that right there. So I might bring up the exposure just a teeny tiny little bit, might drop the warmth and the temperature just a little bit, but overall that's a pretty solid edit. And then with this, I'm going to really just basically do the before and after. And with this, I'm going to sync all the images that were shot in the same area. So for this, we had probably 5 or 6 in kind of a more urban setting in this exact location or very close to it. So lighting similar, color temperature is the same. And so with manual, you're able to lock that in, get it for one image, and use the sync process across multiple images. So just to show you guys how that would work, I'm going to come into her regular library, and I'm just going to select a couple images. So let's say we've got these 2 images. I could come in and sync the settings between them, and we've got that pretty much settled. So a really nice feature inside of Lightroom. Again, you can just go to settings, and you'll just, there'll be an option for sync settings in there. You have to have multiple images selected. Now, the other thing we can do, and this is a cool tool inside of Adobe Lightroom, is you can use the mask feature. So that's just here in the top right. And what I sometimes like to do is add a linear gradient. And with this linear gradient, we can just come in. I'm just going to draw this basically from top to bottom. And sometimes here what I'll do is I'll add a little bit of warmth as well. And so if we toggle this on and off, you can see that there's just a teeny tiny little bit of warmth added in that background. So with this is really nice, especially for if you have like those really warm sunny days and you want to add just a little bit of extra kind of oomph to it. And then what's really cool inside of at least the newest Adobe Lightrooms is that you can subtract from the mask, and I'm going to select subject on this. So I'm going to basically tell Adobe Lightroom to take the mask away from the subject. So when we do that, we'll notice that the subject is masked. So we're telling it to remove that warmth that we've just added to the background from the subject, so we're able to control the two independently. So if I were to say jack up the exposure or contrast or anything like that, you can see that my subject is not affected. Now, we don't want to do that because that doesn't look very good for the photos, but there are a lot of unique purposes for that. And then the other one, I'm just going to come in, edit this image. We're just going to kind of crop in a little bit. Again, we could use Adobe Remove to take out this post, which I actually did for her real client photos prior to delivering them. And I'm just going to use the exact same process. And you know what? We can even probably sync our settings. We even sync the mask as well, which is cool. It'll go through and do AI masking and all that stuff. So that's kind of cool as well. Hopefully that translated. Yep. There it is. And with this, one of the things, we can even see that that's pretty close to what I wanted. So it's kind of nice to use this even in between images. And then with this, I might just add a teeny tiny little bit of contrast, but that's about it. Bump up the shadows, and you can see how quickly we can change settings from location to location. Same thing. I'm going to do it for this image real quick. We had this beautiful, like, warm fall light that we were working with. And honestly, I could probably even just sync the settings here. Let's see what it gives us. And that's actually pretty close to that final image. I'll just come in, exposure, and let's even just see, transfer it between those two. One of the things that I also do is notice this image is a lot darker when we sync to the settings. What we can also do is this is under settings, and we can just click match total exposures. And what that'll do is it'll come in and say, hey, how is this image exposed, and apply it to the others. And you can see how quickly that image is fixed. Now, for the sake of time, I'm just going to take you through the Photoshop edit for one of these. And for this, I'm just going to bring down that exposure a little bit. The AI edit, I'm going to just take out this thing in the background. So I'm just really looking for like background distractions and everything, and it'll remove that background using AI. And just like so, kind of see which of these variations looks best. That one looks good. And yeah, that's pretty much that. Might crop in on this one just a little bit to get her more centered. And again, we've got our before and after. Now, this is pretty simple editing. So again, nothing too complicated. I'm not using presets, and that's really why we cover inside of Pose and Snap. Like, why is it important to have the right locations? As you can see, one of the things that I will note is that these images are natural light images. These don't have even a reflector. Maybe should I have shot with a reflector? Potentially, but it's all natural light because I'm choosing the best locations. It's good lighting, so to begin with, so making sure that you're not shooting in bad lighting, trying to fix it in editing. And then it even comes down to even just shooting in the right areas of your location as well. So with this, if I were to turn the subject in certain ways, it's not going to turn out real well. Now, this editing is very similar to if I were to use off-camera flash as well. So you guys can incorporate this into your editing, even if you're using strobes or something like that. So that's our Lightroom. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this image and we're going to bring it into Photoshop. So went ahead and brought this into Photoshop, and as you can see, we've got our before image. So with this is prior to doing any skin retouching. For my retouching process, what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover skin. I'm going to make it look natural, so I'm not going to make her look plasticky, and I'm going to go ahead and take away the flyaways from her hair. So with this, we use a really cool AI editing software to help us with this, and you can see right off the bat, we've got our before and our after. So very, very, very quick and easy. And then with this, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to take you kind of step by step. Actually, we'll just toggle these off. And what you can see is for the final image, I just kind of brought her hairline in a little bit. What I'm going to do is for every edit that I do, I'm going to do my signature edit. And one of the nice things about this is I just open up all the images in Photoshop and I just drag the layers over so I can apply it to multiple images. So you're not doing the same steps over and over. So we kind of batch edit in a way. For this, the very first thing I love is to add a little bit of like a flare, a little bit of a glow to my images, especially in the fall if they're backlit. So, or in the summer for that matter. So basically we're thinking in layers. So this is our flare layer. Again, we'll notice that I just kind of have the subject masked out so it's not adding a glow to her, so that it's not taking away any contrast from our subject where she's, looking faded out or anything. I'm going to warm up our background a little bit so we can see that kind of orangey glow come in. We can just take a brush with like an orange and just use like a soft light layer. And then I'm going to do a vignette. And I'm going to add some extra contrast, and then I'm just going to do any skin adjustments. So as we add contrast, it usually adds and accentuates the reds in skin tones. I usually like to pull those out, and we can just use a little preset that we've got for our students, and that's that. So that is pretty much my edit. So if we were to take this, we see our before and then our after for our Adobe Photoshop little kind of final touches. And what I'll say with this is it's very much about less is more. We don't want to go overboard to the fact that it looks unnatural, because the seniors don't like that these days. So little before and after, and then a little side by side for you guys over on YouTube. Before and after. So again, we're just kind of adding it, taking it to the next level without it looking too overboard. And the client really loved these images. So that's how we do a fall edit, all the way from Lightroom. You can see that again, the changes are very, very minimal if we look before and after on almost all of these images. We're not doing a ton inside of Lightroom, and it's kind of a stacking effect. Each small little change stacks on the next, and it really overall lends itself to a really beautiful image. So again, you can see the importance of getting it right out of camera, and then with the power of a little bit of retouching, we've taken it from the image on the left to the beautiful final image on the right. Again, thanks so much for watching. If you want to grab access to Pose and Snap, where we go in from everything from how to pose so that your seniors love their images, to making sure you're photographing in the right locations, getting them those images that they love, whether it's an urban, a nature setting, shooting in the right lighting environments, all the way to the final edit, doing an in-depth workflow. This is just a little snippet. For time's sake on YouTube, we could be here for hours. We cover those trainings inside of Pose and Snap. So make sure you click the link in the description and make sure to hit the follow button. We are here every single week giving you education on all things senior photography and portrait photography, from pricing, senior rep programs, marketing, and more. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next episode or next video, wherever it is. Click here and we'll see what we got for you. No, seriously, click it.